Introduced at the beginning of the Shadowlands expansion, Exile's Reach, it represents a new philosophy for the World of Warcraft starting experience. Rather than dropping players into sprawling zones or fragmented narratives, it delivers a focused, intentional introduction to how the game plays and feels. Hi, I'm AJP, and in this series, I'll be traveling across Azeroth and beyond, ranking each zone through 4 distinct categories: the story, the journey, the wander, and the vibes. This journey begins from the Horde perspective, following my Orc Shaman, Brocester, and it starts here on Exile's Reach. Welcome to Wandering WarCraft. So let's go ahead and kick it off. At its core, Exile's Reach, it's a story about survival that quickly turns into a rally against an unforeseen force. You begin as part of a rescue mission led by Warlord Brekka Grimax, sailing towards a remote, uncharted island in search of a lost expedition. That mission, well, it ends almost immediately when your ship is caught in a violent storm and torn apart just offshore. You wake up stranded, surrounded by injured crewmates, and the island wastes no time in making its intentions clear. As the survivors regroup, the focus shifts from simply staying alive to finding the rest of the expedition, and this includes Brekka's daughter, Suja Grimax. What begins as scattered rescues gradually becomes something more deliberate. A base camp forms, allies are rallied, and the island stops feeling like a place you're merely enduring. Each success builds momentum, turning the expedition from a recovery effort into a coordinated push inward. Well, that rally, it culminates at the heart of an ogre stronghold. With the expedition leader recovered at the footsteps of Dark Maul Citadel, the final act shifts from rescue to resolution. Inside the Citadel, the true source of the island's corruption is confronted: the ogre necromancer Gorgroth and the undead dragon he seeks to rise. When reinforcements arrive and the expedition finally departs, Exile's Reach closes its story with confidence, sending you forward rather than leaving you behind. What makes Exile's Reach stand out is how intentionally it guides the player from moment to moment. The island is paced to introduce something new just as the previous idea starts to feel familiar. Combat tutorials give way to rescue objectives, which open into light exploration, vehicle quests, and experimental mechanics. You're never stuck doing the same thing for too long, and the zone never overwhelms you with choices. One of the smartest design decisions here is how player progression is handled. The zone is structured so that the player have the ability to reach level 10 and unlock their specializations before even leaving the island, rather than after it's finished. In my run specifically, the Warband experience buff, which is capped at 25%, pushed that moment to the middle of the zone, and the impact was immediate. Combat feels more expressive. Earlier encounters clicked into place as intentional learning moments, and then the back half of the island, it shifted from instruction to execution. Granted, my rotation was probably a little boring and I kept one-shotting everything, but aside from that, it was fine. Even for players who hit level 10 later, the intent is clear. Specialization is meant to feel like part of the journey and not a reward tacked on at the end. As the experience continues, Exile's Reach layers complexity without losing momentum. Goblin gadgets in the form of a ray gun, vehicle-based combat like riding a glider and firing upon zombie hordes, and stage encounters introduce spectacle while reinforcing core systems. Clearing harpy camps and pushing into the ogre stronghold give the island structure. while quieter moments like cooking food for a starving member of the expedition or freeing captured allies help break up the pacing. Every quest is doing more than one job, advancing the story while quietly teaching how the World of Warcraft works. The journey culminates in Dark Maul Citadel, which serves as the zone's first true dungeon experience. Rather than forcing players to immediately tank or heal, those responsibilities are handled by familiar NPCs, including the Grimaxes, Brekka, and Suja. This allows players to enter primarily as damage dealers, DPS, regardless of their specialization if they get to it at level 10. And this keeps the focus on learning dungeon flow and awareness without really any unnecessary pressure. Nobody likes to be that tank who doesn't know what the pull rate is, but I guess in this case it's not that bad. The encounters themselves reinforce core habits that carry forward into the rest of the game. Bosses, well, they'll ask you to watch positioning, react to telegraphed attacks, and recognize when moving or stopping casts matter more than raw damage. There's a couple of examples. The first boss, for instance, Talk, has a interrupting shout. So it's really good as an indicator to avoid that shout. I mean, you're only interrupted for a couple of seconds, but it's meant to be a prelude to what's to come later on as you progress your story throughout the World of Warcraft. And that philosophy comes into full focus with the final fight against the dragon. Now, one thing I've always loved is a classic World of Warcraft dragon encounter. You have your breath attacks, your wing buffets, your tail swipes. All of that feels instantly familiar to myself as a veteran, while quietly teaching new players the fundamentals of dragon combat. There's a ton of dragon fights in the game, more than I can list off on my fingers, and each one of them has some uniqueness in its own way. It's intentional, readable, and exactly the right note to end on. Exile's Reach doesn't offer much room to truly get lost, but it does a great job rewarding curiosity in small, memorable ways. The island is compact by design, yes, yet consistently encourages players to just step off the main path without even, punishing them for doing so. Some of the most enjoyable moments came from these detours. I remember fondly finding a hidden Edton who, didn't attack me, thankfully. I would have been squashed. Instead, he chucks me across the ravine, the river. He just chucks me across back to where I was. It was a nice little change of pace. I enjoyed it. Another little hidden find was an underwater cave where you get to meet a race called the Tortolans. Nothing extreme happens there either. They just kind of whisk you back to where you need to be. So despite feeling like a secret discovery, they just gently redirect you back onto the journey, whether it be gently through flowing waters or chucked across a ravine. The moments don't derail progress, but they give the island personality and acknowledge the instinct to explore, which is key. And we'll discover this as we progress through all these zones, that there's just so many little hidden Easter eggs and things to find. I mean, the side content reinforces that curiosity with clear rewards, and which is a key thing about the whole idea of wandering, I would say. Whether it be through something minor like a speed buff you get from saving a trapped light spawn through a quest, or an elite bear, your first elite encounter solo out in the wild, which rewards you with shoulders. Now, granted, in the grand scheme of things, this is meant for you to group up with other characters, but given the fact that it's kind of sparse throughout the Exile's Reach, you should be able to solo it fairly easy, I would say. On top of that, there's rare mobs in the form of ogres, roaming around the island, and small treasures. Each of these doesn't necessarily impact the immediate moment, but it does reward you for kind of going off the beaten path and exploring. And this kind of rewards you at the end. One of the most satisfying incentives came from completing all of the quests within Exile's Reach and unlocking a full transmog set. Is it the best looking set? No, but I have it. And what it does is it quietly teaches new players that exploration and completion aren't just about experience points, but about long-term customization and identity and reward and things like that. The Wanderer isn't about freedom, it's about encouragement. The zone lets you feel clever and then nudges you forward before the momentum is lost. Exile's Reach absolutely shines when it comes to atmosphere. Visually, the island pulls clear inspiration from a zone in World of Warcraft Legion called Stormheim. And this is blended in with what I believe are, architecture, ogre architecture, I should say, from inspiration of Highball back in the Warlords of Draenor expansion. This creates a space that feels familiar while still standing on its own. The journey begins on a shattered shoreline, broken ships litter the beach, Murloc camps feel hastily assembled, and the environment immediately sells the idea that something went wrong. As you move inland, Amber Plains transition into darker, thorn-choked Quillbore territory, and I'm always a big fan of the Quillbore environment. I love the roots and the thorns and everything like that. The dark, it's like not dark, but it feels light, if that makes any sense. The tone shifts naturally too, which is really impressive, hostile, but not overwhelming. And then that darkness breaks into light as you reach the central plains. Green grass stretches beneath looming ogre structures, reinforcing a sense of progress. From there, the island continues to layer its biomes, spider-filled caves, harpy-infested woods, and that fortified ogre compound each bring their own mood, keeping the environment fresh despite the zone's compact size. Really important in a lot of cases. The ogre area leans into personality as much as threat, and this is something that I really enjoyed. As part of the story, you disguise yourself as an ogre and then you blend into the camp, and this kind of creates an interesting moment of deception as you're walking through with your crewmates, and you have this fun interaction where if you slash dance, you get all of the ogres to participate in the dance, which, if you're not familiar, the ogre dance is Chris Farley's Chippendales. 10 out of 10. Always a classic dance. And then you tie it all off with Darkmaul Citadel. And this ties everything together visually. Dark stone construction, a vertical design, and a climactic ascent towards the final confrontation at the top of the spire give this dungeon real presence. Facing a necromancer and an undead dragon feels appropriately dramatic. And the best part about it all is that the music elevates all of it. The opening ship sequence uses woodwinds and drums, specifically for the Horde side, to establish a restrained rhythm that slowly grows. Strings bring mystery to the island as you're exploring the beach and going through the Amber Plains. The Quillbore areas lean into more of a tribal drum energy, and then the Darkmaul Plains, when you get to that grassy area, open up into full adventure. The horns blare, the strings are going, and it feels epic. It feels explorational, that's the word. It feels grand. The soundtrack mirrors the journey perfectly. So now probably you're asking yourself, well, where does this all rank up? Where do we land from here? So we're going to be ranking everything from 1 to 5. I think that kind of keeps it simple, keeps it simplistic. And we're going to start with the story. The story, I'm going to give it a 3.5 out of 5. It's focused, effective, and does exactly what it needs to do without aiming for deep lore. Without really spoiling any context, most of the characters that you come across in Exile's Reach aren't memorable characters. They're not the iconic ones. They're there in this specific instance, with the exception of Sutra Grimax, and I want to say 2 or 3 more. It might even be Brekka as well, too. So some of these characters are going to be characters that you'll come across during follower dungeons. And if you're not familiar with what those are, they are NPC guided dungeons. They started, I want to say, in the War Within expansion. So it's a easy way to get your weekly quest if you're kind of gunning for that. From the journey perspective, though, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. Progression is thoughtful. The onboarding experience is strong, and it's very important to keep in mind. And the zone prepares players for what World of Warcraft expects without friction. Now, I probably should have prefaced this at the beginning of the video, but if you're not familiar based on what you've seen through any of the clips, this is taking into context the pre-midnight Exile's Reach. I understand that they've changed the story to be more updated to Dragonflight and War Within and Midnight, while this current iteration is more based on continuing the story from Battle for Azeroth. So that's key to keep in mind there. From the Wander aspect, though, I am going to give this a 2.5 out of 5. It's not bad. It's middle of the road. The exploration is rewarding and memorable, but as I kind of alluded to previously, most of the reward is contained within the zone itself, with the transmog set really being the only exception. The interactions that you have by going off the beaten path just kind of tend to bring you there. They do its job to introduce and encourage exploration, but you're not really rewarded beyond the idea of knowing it exists, if that makes any sense. Now for the vibes. I'm giving the vibes a 5 out of 5, and this might be a biased opinion. I was a real big fan of Stormheim as a zone in Legion. I thought it was a great zone. I mained a warrior for a little bit, so the Vicruel, I'm butchering that name. That whole experience is great. I love that Valhalla, that Odin, that kind of vibe, and you get kind of tinges of it as you're exploring that land. And then, of course, you get introduced to all the different biomes, the Harpies, the Quillboar, the Ogre compound that's very High Maul inspired. All that fits really well within like a small zone. And then, of course, the music. I know there's some people who play with Spotify playing in the background. In fact, as I'm recording this, I have Spotify playing in the background because sometimes you just like to tune out. But if you ever give yourself some time, listen to some of the newer, some of the older World of Warcraft music is iconic in its sense, but some of it outside of, oh god, I'm blanking on the name. The Arthas music, the Shadowfang Keep music, walking into Stormwind for the first time and hearing the all that. The newer stuff is just gold, and you're probably going to hear this a lot through the series. The art team, the art and the music team, they carry World of Warcraft. So if I don't remember even I gave my rating on it, but 5 out of 5, no notes, hands down. So this kind of puts Exile's Reach at a very respectable, very comfortable 3.75 out of 5. And it's not meant to be a destination. This is the starting experience. In fact, you cannot go back to Exile's Reach once you've left it. That's it. You're done. So it's a wham bam, thank you ma'am starting experience, but it does what it's meant to do. It's meant to be a beginning. And as a beginning, it succeeds with confidence, clarity, and style. Thank you so much for watching this. This is the first of many videos. I've got hours upon hours of footage that I need to sift through, record, scripts to write, but I'm really excited about this journey, and I'm really excited about you joining me for this. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a like, and make sure to subscribe for more. My goal, as ambitious as I want to be, bi-weekly is what I'm shooting for right now, but if I give the spark of inspiration hits, I'm really hoping to get things out a little bit faster than that. But please join me on this ride, enjoy it, and I will see you in Azeroth. Thank you so much. Take care and have a great rest of your day.